And once again, welcome everybody. I'm Nigel Boldrow, co-founder of Norfolk Green Care Network, and until recently, its convener. I recently stepped down from that role due to other pressures of work and things, but the network is continuing, and the support team that we have is still very active and looking to do great things in the coming year. So if you're not a member of the network and would like to be, have a look at our website, ngcn.uk, and you'll see various pages on there about what we do, and also a link to where you can join us. I particularly like to welcome Tim Braund and Jake Mardell from Forestry England today, who are going to be talking to us about Forestry England's work around health and nature, but particularly I think focusing on Thetford Forest and High Lodge. We normally have about presentations of about 20-25 minutes, and then there's opportunities for you to ask questions and have some discussion. I would ask you in the meantime, perhaps if you could put yourselves on mute in case we have any background noise, dogs and babies, the usual thing, that would be very nice. And over to Tim and Jake, perhaps like you introduce yourselves and we'll get into things.
Lovely, thanks, Nigel. Hi, folks. Thank you for your time. I'm Tim. I'm the Active Forests Health and Community Officer. So I've got a national role working across Forestry England sites. I particularly have oversight of a project called Feel Good in the Forest, which is our social prescribing work stream. But this afternoon we're going to just do a very quick run through what we're calling off Forest Champions, and it'll be a little bit of a national overview, what we're trying to do, and then I'll pass on to Jake for that slightly more fine-grained look at what's on your doorstep, and hopefully we can encourage you to visit both High Lodge and the wider Thetford Forest estates. That's me. Jake, over to you.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I'm Jake. I'm the Active Forest Coordinator here. So kind of Tim's sort of got an overview nationally, whereas my focus is specifically at High Lodge, Thetford Forest. So yeah, Tim's going to run you over some bits today, and then I'll kind of narrow that down to what that looks like, maybe more locally. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. It's always the moment that we enjoy. Okay, so it's at a full screen for everyone.
Yeah,
all good.
Fantastic. Okay, so our concept of Feel Good in the Forest Champions is very much taking an approach, or adopting an approach that's used by the NHS in their health champions. And you may be aware of health champions that are based in their communities that are advocates for smoking cessation or recovery from operations or cancer relief, those sorts of things. What we're looking to do is build on that, and where there may be people that already exist or people that want to get involved in our work, is to become advocates for the nation's forests. So what is a Feel Good in the Forest champion? It's someone who has the same passion for woodlands and forests that we have. Woodlands and trees and forests, they are a very important part of our environment. They look after us. We can look after the forests. And we know there's a lot of research that shows being outdoors, being active outdoors, and being active outdoors in contact with nature is good for people's health and well-being. So what we're trying to do, and hopefully by the end of this short presentation and then conversations with Jake over the next coming weeks and months, you might well become forest champions and advocates for what we're trying to do. There's just a short video here now, hopefully it will play, just to explain better what Forestry England is succinctly than I can do. So hopefully this will play just for a second.
We are for mud, for trees, for timber, for homes, for harvesting, rebooting, reconnecting, and tiring the dog, for the climate, for wildlife, for curiosity in Class 7C, for planning, planting, for this generation and the next, for all, for always. We are for England. We are Forestry England.
That's just a short snippet there. Forestry England is the largest recreational landowner in the country. We've got over 1,500 sites across England. We are very active at probably 20 of what we call our forest centre sites, our destination sites, of which Jake is an example at High Lodge. And we're trying to engage with a whole range of stakeholders, from NHS, public health teams, through to third sector, to get people more active in forest settings. The scale of the challenge, you're probably aware, is significant. We are particularly looking to target people who are inactive, and there are some scary statistics out there about the levels of inactivity. People are also experiencing serious mental health challenges. Young people is an area that I'm particularly worried about. There's a time bomb there waiting. If we don't start getting young people more active and outdoors and enjoying spaces, that is going to roll on into the future. And increasingly, particularly it was coming out of COVID, that long-term loneliness has been identified as having serious implications for health and well-being. So when we think about Forestry England sites, the more obvious things that we might think about in terms of physical activity are our walking, running and cycling trails, going to some of the sites where there is bike hire or there are activities taking place. There may be regular activities of people doing Nordic walking or running clubs or yoga, those sorts of things. A lot of our destination sites have park runs. So there are things that people could be signposted towards if they wanted to get involved in the forest. But there's also the aspect of sort of that less physically active, but still important, of the cafes and picnic sites and social spaces, that connection with people, that connection with nature, an opportunity just to chill and unwind and relax and just be in that space and slow down and take time to enjoy what's around us. And there are plenty of family activities. And I've got an old Gruffalo behind me. Jake has been saying it's a rubbish one. This is the one from Kilda, who's been stood up north getting battered and bruised. I have got Jake's version on the picture, but I haven't changed my background yet. So there's hopefully a range of activities that people could visit the forest for, and not just the forest centres, but also those community woodlands that may be closer to where people are. In terms of our feel good in the forest outcomes, on the bottom right hand side of that slide, we've built that, and we've got a little journal taking lots of elements from 5 Ways to Wellbeing, which I'm sure a number of you will be aware of. Also the ONS4, which is the National Wellbeing Measure, the Warwick Edinburgh Score, which is the 45-page monster that nobody wants to fill in, and then tying that all in as well with the nature connectedness pathway. It's very good to be out in nature and have contact with it, but we're trying to go that other step of actually having a connection, a deeper connection with nature, and taking that time to enjoy. So our feel good in the forest outcomes, we want people to be more active. We want them to be more empowered. They may have tried a new activity. They might have learned a new skill and be able to go back into their where they live, into their community, saying, well, I was successful at that. I can try something new and something different. We want people to be more connected, not just with nature, but with each other. Again, that social aspect. We try to make sure people are included in what we're doing. And that inclusion is giving voice and value to people that are involved in our program, so co-design, co-production, and hopefully by being in nature and being connected to nature and being more physically active, people become more resilient and more restored. So what we call our forest wellbeing pyramid is again a concept that we've developed, trying to mirror the NHS personalised care model. And if I go start at the bottom of the pyramid and move up, that forest in everyday life, we call it finding your own feel good in the forest. Those are the trails, the walking trails, the cycling trails, the running trails, Gruffalo, orienteering, the things that everyone can do by turning up on site and just going and enjoying the space. The middle part of the pyramid is joining others to feel good in the forest. That's promoting forest for general well-being. And that may well be joining a group that's doing a Nordic walk. It might be joining a Ramblers group that are doing a health walk. It might be joining a local running club that runs at site, or a park run on a Saturday. Then at the top of the pyramid is the green care element, being supported to feel good in the forest. That's the program that I have oversight of, which is that much more social prescribing, people being referred into specific programs, maybe for 6, 8, 12 weeks, whatever it may be, who may not have considered about getting into forest, getting outside, getting more physically active. And ultimately, what we want to do is help people move down the pyramid so that if they have a good time, they will be able then maybe join others or actually use the space themselves. An example that we use is Couch to 5K. We might pay for a running coach to do a Couch to 5K course that people have never considered running. If they enjoy that and they say, oh, what do I do next? We say, well, actually, at High Lodge, this is hypothetical, I need to check with Jake, but there's a park run on a Saturday, you might want to join in that. But if you really get into your running and you want to buy yourself some trainers, you can turn up at our sites when the sites are open and just run and enjoy those trails. We also accept that people move up and down the pyramid, that you can have a good day and you can have a bad day. So there will be times when people might be looking, actually, I'm really enjoying running on my own, but I need that support from other folk. So a very simple way to get started in finding out what we've got available around the country. So this is this broad scale that I'm talking about, is to have a look at our website and identify where your nearest forest is. That's one route in, or find out what things there are to do at those various sites. It might take a little bit of popping around the website to actually get to where you want to be, but that's the first stage. As potential forest champions, if you're talking to clients or beneficiaries or participants or people that you know in your network, this might be somewhere to signpost them for that first step. So that's sort of a national perspective. That's the overview of what we're trying to achieve. I'll now pass on to Jake for the more localized section.
Super, thanks, Tim. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know High Lodge, or maybe don't know where it is, it's kind of on the Norfolk-Suffolk border, in between Thetford and Brandon. There's probably a common misconception that this is Thetford Forest, and that's the only bit. Thetford Forest is massive, and High Lodge is just a chunk of Thetford Forest, what we'd probably call as the most accessible part of Thetford Forest in terms of facilities and access. It is a forest visitor centre. It does have a parking charge. There's things like that, but what in terms that comes with is the facilities and all those things that allows it to be further accessible. There's obviously opportunities still within this program where you know, those other sites, those pilot sites, the ones that maybe have free parking, could still have, particularly that bottom of the pyramid, someone coming out for a walk or whatever that might be. Yeah, next one, please, Tim. So as Tim's kind of explained, you know, the Active Forest Programme has a really well thought out base and resources, which have been kind of recently put together. In no means does that mean that this site is fully ready for, it's ready, is not fully up and running with all those things in terms of the full ends of the pyramid. So the bottom, the middle, the top. Actually, what we do really well is the bottom two. So there's a really good self-led offer here. So if you were somebody to come and run or walk and cycle, there's opportunities for just about every age and every ability in terms of that. Really nicely signposted, waymarked trails. You know, people aren't going to get lost in the forest. There's accessible trails in terms of well surfaced. There's opportunities for people to use accessible kind of platform bikes and wheelchair access to go and see the forest in a way that you ordinarily wouldn't, as I said, at these other sites. So yeah, that's that one. I think what's really important to figure out is we're on this journey at a point where we'd love to do more of that top of the pyramid, and I'll go on to a little bit of that later. Next one, please, Tim. So yeah, if you're familiar with the site, you'll know it's a real hub of activities. So there's all sorts to do in terms of Go Ape, who offer treetop courses, segways through the forest. There's archery, there's adventure golf, and there's disc golf, which we're really proud of, which is a new Forestry England partnership, which is popping up all around the sites nationally now. And again, just offering a wide range, mostly aimed, you know, families are the ones that are kind of our main attraction. They're the people that are coming in. But again, we're seeing staff groups coming out and doing sort of corporate away days and really getting that release and that well-being out from that office environment into somewhere where it's got, it's a completely different change to the office part. Next one, Tim, please. Touching on back to Tim's pyramid. So the middle of the pyramid is looking more at support that's being provided by a provider. As I said, this is an area that we've got some fantastic providers already up and running with things that could be attended. It's another area that can grow, and again, part of why we're here and looking to network is to maybe welcome offers from other partnerships to bring other activities to the forest, but also linking up this existing offer that we have. So top left, we've got Nordic Walking. We have a Nordic Walking instructor who comes and delivers sessions weekly. Breeze into the Forest, which is a fantastic British cycling initiative aimed at women, to try and get women cycling socially, but also getting those kind of social benefits, but also that physical benefit of obviously coming out and getting that exercise. That's something that's happening sort of twice a month. I think it's probably something that is really quite undersold, I'd say. It's a fantastic initiative that's maybe undersold our end, but also isn't heard about too much. And again, it's about us trying to find those connections. Who could be the right person for a group or a class or a session that would fit and actually come into there. We've got running groups, some running coaching. So that's another one that's happening sort of twice a month. A nice opportunity to come out and run. So we talked about that self-led offer as someone coming out and running on their own. Someone might not want to do that. I understand that running in a forest by yourself could be pretty daunting. There's opportunities to do that as a group and also to learn more and improve, which is really, really good. We've also got a fantastic forest bathing and sound bath practitioner who does sessions monthly. So forest bathing is something that really, really is growing, and people are really enjoying coming to those sessions with Nikki. So she takes them on a sort of guided tour around some of the nicer parts of the forest, looking at a bit of meditation and really trying to focus on that well-being side of things as a session. She also does sound baths as well. Again, that focus is all about relaxation, trying to zone away, trying to almost escape from whatever that is. It's that kind of hour where they're just putting things on pause, soaking it all in and using the forest and nature to that advantage. I've had lots of really good conversations with Active Norfolk and Mind, the charity, as to how we can almost use this offer as something where how can we link this up, because so far this offer is just advertised publicly, I guess, and what we've been trying to do more recently is trying to link up that offer as how we can maybe prescribe this as an offer, how we can prescribe these things, because the feedback and the people that are attending these sessions, there's no end of really positive feedback, and we'd really like to try and maybe look at that more impactful journey as trying to aim it and prescribe it as groups of people that really, really need it, and it would be have a massive positive impact. Thanks, Tim. Next one. Feels like COVID all over again, doesn't it? Next slide. I guess that moves us on to kind of the willingness to collaborate with us. Before you start trying to scan that QR code, that is just a example of our car park and how we can change prices with QR codes. That will get you nowhere if you try and scan it now. But there's a willingness from us to reduce fees on parking where it fits. Work with different groups to provide sessions, bespoke sessions, using the space that we have to kind of have this really impactful session that has that positive outcome, rather than just being a machine that says, right, you come and have a session here, great, that's fine, that's done. We actually want to see the journey that's involved with that. is there a group of people that can access a certain session? What are the benefits from that? And then move on from there. Tim's done some work with sort of mini projects, and we have small amounts of money to occasionally put into some mini projects to do, but that can only take us so far. Last year, for example, we worked with Big C to bring, as I touched on, Nikki's sort of forest bathing and sound bath element with some of their service users. And this is the kind of work that we'd like to do more of. Two things that we need for that is potentially that partnership with some funding, but also just the connections to who that might be. Sometimes, we've got the space here and we're kind of ready to give something or give a space or give an activity, but we almost need that connection with the local community to say where that is. We've recently had some good conversations with the NHS and their doctors that are currently junior doctors that are training up as to what is the missing piece. I seem to have so many good conversations, and I know Tim does as well, around social prescribing, and it's kind of like it's a conversation where we're all sort of waiting to what is that link there. So I guess part of today is any potential formings of the network to have further conversations to be able to do that. We've got Oak Lodge as well, which is an indoor space down the bottom there. So what's great about that is it's accessible. It means we can do things through the winter potentially, but we're still actually in the middle of a forest. There's that opportunity that we're not just turning up at a site that has no toilets, has no facilities, no indoor space, nowhere to leave our things. We can appreciate that's not going to be very ideal with certain groups. So I think that's our perfect space, and that's used quite a lot. Next one, please, Tim. I think that might be back to you.
Okay, thanks, Jake. That's hopefully, folks, that gives sort of a bit of a feel for what's on offer relatively locally to you. Jake and I would be delighted to have ongoing conversations with anyone in the network or people beyond the network about can we work together. I've got funding where we could do a bit of proof of concept in some ways of getting individuals, groups out to do things. I can pay for providers, I can pay for catering, for refreshments, that sort of thing, for target audiences, so people that are have long-term health conditions, mild to moderate mental health challenges, are isolated, come from lower socioeconomic groups. So the inverted commas, the usual suspects for those underserved groups who might benefit from time in the forest from a health and wellbeing perspective. We would love to have those conversations going forward. So Jake would be your first contact, and if we get excited, Jake can then tap me up for some cash. That's part of my role nationally. The other thing that we have is are a number of online resources that may be a way to entice people to think about visiting the forest. So again, if you're to visit the forest, visit the website, there are wellbeing pages. There's the sort of black fronted Forest Wellbeing Journal. It's a really good little journal that takes people on basically a wellbeing walk. They're based around a trail, but you don't need a trail. And it suggests activities like pausing to listen to things, look at things, smell things, touch things, move mindfully. There's a whole range of things in there that just takes the edge off that race and pace that we've got in life all the time. So that's something that is available. And as I say, there are a number of resources online that might be of interest to you. So we're going to stop there. It's classically, I wish we had you all day, and maybe an offer I can make. I could fund perhaps a network meeting at Thetford, where we could pay for some lunch for you and pay for a couple of activities. That might be something the network's interested in, to actually experience it yourselves. Or I think the best way for you to go back and be advocates to become forest champions is to go say, I did that, it was amazing. Because Jake and I would say that, but actually people say that was amazing. They go back, they say maybe somebody else would be interested. So I'll stop sharing my screen if I can. Well done, folks. Technically now you are forest champions. Unfortunately, we don't have any stickers yet, but when we do, we will get some stickers out to you. I think, Nigel, hopefully a copy of these slides will go out with any notes from the meeting or anything like that. So there are plenty of links in there. Any further queries, contact Jake, myself. We'd be delighted to have a chat with you. So thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you both very much. That was fascinating and very impressive. Just wait till we get everyone back in view. That's better. Lovely. Thank you. Well, lovely. And really, we've got about half an hour or so for questions, discussion, and so on. Can you? I think we're all visible on the screen. If you'd like to share your, share your video and put your hand up physically, that's fine. Otherwise, just put a virtual hand, as you probably know how to do now on the Zoom, and we'll take it from there. Who'd like to kick off? There's all a stunned silence at this moment, isn't there? I have one prepared, so I'll put one to you both. Fascinating what you're doing, and very impressive in terms of the range of things that you've got on at Thetford. My question really is about accessibility. And I mean, Forestry England, I know, manages, and you said it in your introduction, a massive amount of forest across the country. I haven't looked at your website, so I don't know how many sites you have that are a bit like Thetford. But I'd be interested to know, how many of those sites have you got going, and is there scope for developing others? Because I've got one up my sleeve, as they say, just north of Norwich, which I think might fit the bill for you.
Shall I go first from a national perspective, Jake, and then
Yeah, sure.
Then you can make decisions locally that I won't get involved with. Then I think accessibility is a real challenge. It's a really interesting one, because a lot of our work takes place at our destination centres. So on the whole, you need to have some form of transport to get there, and it's both a real and perceived barrier. And every conversation I have, yes, it's a challenge, but I think if we try to think a bit more creatively with car share schemes, voluntary car schemes, community minibus schemes, there must be ways. It can't be beyond the wit of all of us working together to overcome that particular barrier. And then there's the paywall. Yes, we understand that there's a cost there. But as Jake mentioned, if we were doing a social prescribing activity, it may well be that we can look at varying those prices in some way. But the other thing that I'm really keen to do, particularly through our social prescribing projects, is to give people the experience of being in nature, in the forest, in woodland. And ideally, we want people to come back to Forestry England sites, because that's where we can start to build that longer term relationship. But if someone's excited and enthused and has some sort of behaviour change in their activity levels or their sociability, or whatever it may be, and they continue that back where they live, I'm quite relaxed about that. So hopefully we give people confidence and skills and knowledge to say, I enjoyed doing that. I'm going to go home. I'm going to look around my local recreational parks, my local wildlife trust reserves, my local National Trust settings, my local RSPB sites, whatever it may be. There's actually, there's a whole environment out there. We are but one part as Forestry England. We are not the be all and end all. And something else that would be interesting to look at, and I think I can see, is it Sarah from RSPB is on the call, who's working with my line manager, Ellen Devine, is actually looking at, can we work collectively in local settings, so where communities are, rather than necessarily dragging communities out.
Exactly my point, really. Yeah.
I could be shot for saying that a little bit, but no, we're keen to do that. We want to give people an experience, but then say continue this behaviour change, because societally, that's where we start to make the big differences. So let's have those conversations as well. Where can we work together where it's not necessarily on a Forestry England site? So that's my national sort of view of what we're trying to do. Over to Jake for any sort of local knowledge about alternative sites.
Yeah, no, I just think just on that accessibility bit, as a site locally, we've just undergone an accessibility audit in terms of making this forest particularly, and I know this is happening across some of the sites, as accessible as possible. So whether that's we're getting a new change in places facility, sort of looking at how the zoning off the forest into certain bits. So how much of the forest can we make accessible when people are arriving, and allowing people to go deeper into the forest to see bits that they wouldn't ordinarily see. So that's just from a this site point of view. In terms of accessible, yeah, there's conversations that are happening, like Tim says, almost moving active forest to where it fits to allow us to still kind of reach those groups depending on where they are. I think a barrier that does come up with this site is actually kind of transportation. It's not something that's accessible public transport wise, and so if we're looking at sort of targeted groups, it could be a hurdle. So it's whether we could bring something out to another site. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I've just a quick comment. I see there's a couple of questions and hands up. I'm working on a project near where I live, which is between the rivers Wensum and Bure. It's basically the watershed between those two rivers north of Norwich, which is primarily about nature recovery, improving biodiversity. But we're also very interested in human health and all the things you've been talking about, enabling people to have better access to the countryside, to experience nature in all the ways that you described. And I do know that there is I think an ancient woodland not far from here, which I think is managed by Forestry England, where I'm thinking, well, wouldn't that be a fantastic venue to have some of the sort of activities, both organised and informal, that you've referred to? So I'm just flagging up. We need a further discussion, I think, Tim and Jake.
It's a very good point. Yeah, definitely one we can raise. I think it's not. I don't think it's something that currently exists at all. But I know it's conversations that have been having, and if it's on Forestry England land, then why not?
Yeah, good. Okay. I see that Dawn has put a very interesting and positive comment in the chat. Dawn, would you just like to say what you've put in the chat, just so everyone can pick up on it about the Heritage Fund?
Sure, thanks, Nigel. Yeah, so I'm Dawn Bainbridge. I'm one of the senior engagement managers here at the fund, and it's really interesting listening to sort of the work that you're doing and how, sort of actually there's sort of a two-pronged outcome in terms of, support for kind of conservation and biodiversity, but also connecting people to nature for health and well-being benefits. And it's, I just wanted to highlight, if you haven't already, it would be good to have a further conversation with you about sort of potential funding that we have available, and perhaps, sort of talking about our new strategy, which has moved from an outcome framework to an investment principle structure. And one of those two of those investment principles is protecting the environment, access, inclusion and participation, and the other two are saving heritage and organisational sustainability. And I think some of the work you're describing aligns quite well with those investment principles. I mean, and like I say, we don't fund existing core work, but if there's new initiatives or targeted groups or new sites that you want to connect with, engage with, work with, and if you're talking about nature recovery as well, I think there's certainly opportunity for us to have more of a discussion around this. And we've got two grant programs. One is 10 to 250,000, and the other is 250,000 up to 10 million. So there's funding there, and it's an opportunity, I think, for us to sort of perhaps have a bit more of a chat around this.
Thank you, Dawn. Sounds like we need to have a chat as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of hands up. Irene, over to you first.
So Nigel, can I just
Yes, sorry, Tim.
Just to clarify, so we're clear. Active Forest, our main sponsor is Sport England, so that's where our Active Forest money comes from. So, Dawn, you're right that we're already funded there. What would be a really good conversation is with those community groups or organisations that want to access the forest, but the barrier is cost. Yeah. If they could work with us to work up a programme, so we could sit down and say, okay, over 6 months we would do these things. It would cost this much in terms of activity providers, these transport costs. That might be something where there are real benefits about having further conversations. So thanks for that, Dawn. That's really useful. Sorry, folks. Just
very good. Thank you. Irene, over to you.
Thank you, Nigel. This is really more a request. Could you talk a little bit more about some of the social prescribing? So are you working with the NHS social prescribers who they're obviously they're all around Suffolk, or are you talking about you've got your own social prescribing system set up there, which you ask people to refer into existing programs that you've already got going? I'd just really like to know more about how that's kind of working.
Yeah, so again, locally, I had a relationship with a previous link worker locally based in Brandon, and we'd done some wellbeing walks and things, very low level, not extremely regular, but a couple of little projects which were successful. Since then, that's sort of a year and a half ago, I'd say, and then since then, I've not managed to form any links or bonds with anybody that's bringing us anybody. So anything that we've done in terms of work has been kind of off our own back, or with recommendations, with getting in touch directly with groups. And I guess that's the purpose of us being here today, is can we make that line a bit more direct and a bit easier? Because one thing we will struggle with is time to do the whole process, if it were. And so yeah, any links with the local community in that end would be wonderful. Yeah.
Good. Okay, Hilary. Sorry, Hilary, over to you now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that talk. It's really interesting. Just going to the point about the social prescribers, have you tried contacting the National Association of Social Prescribers? You know, they might be able to put you in touch with link workers, but also GP surgeries now as well. They don't just have social prescribing link workers, they also have often health coaches and things who are often taking on lots of that work, which similar work to social prescribers, might refer people to exercise, smoking cessation programs as well. So sometimes some GP practices call them health and wellbeing coaches, but they have different names for them. So that might be, rather than just think about link workers, that might be an alternative. But the other point I was going to make was actually, we've been, I don't know if you're aware of the work, talking about venues and where you could go. And there's an organisation in Cambridge called Cambridge Curiosity and Imagination. And their practice is around arts and nature, and trying to engage school children with nature through arts practice, working with artists, going to schools. And I just wondered, one of the things that perhaps you could think about doing is going into schools. And with, you know, you don't need to have a forest in a school playground to get engaged children with nature and to get them interested in nature. There's lots of opportunities to do that. I'll put a link into their website, but I think you might find it quite interesting what they've done if you've not heard of them before.
That's brilliant. No, thank you. What was that? The first, was it National Social Prescribers, the first point that you made?
The National Association of
So,
I think, do you mean the National Academy of Social
National
Prescribing?
Academy, that's it, the
That's
NASP.
one, yeah, NASP.
Because I always think about NASP, yeah, sorry.
I've got a
yeah.
website,
Yeah.
as Hilary has indicated, and they might provide you with some good links, I think. Yeah, good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I haven't been in touch with them.
Thank you very much.
We can
Lorraine, over to you.
Sorry, thank you. I was just interested to hear if anything has been delivered, any activities for kids and young adults with special education needs, or if we could look to do some pilot projects or any activities for younger people. I'm just interested because I was included in a special education needs meeting last week in Thetford, and this was one of the things that comes up quite a lot, that there are no activities in the local area. And I work for Breckland Council, so I'd just be really interested to hear if this is something that we could, you know, facilitate somehow.
Of course. Yeah, as it stands, there isn't really anything that pops to mind. We have a group that come and do an activity day and use that Oak Lodge space, called Twinkle Sen. So I believe that is autistic children coming and using that space as a safe space whilst enjoying the rest of the forest as they would. So that's the only link we have is with Twinkle Sen. And so yeah, I can give you some more details on that. I believe it's not like a sign up and all official. It's quite relaxed and a nice way of them having a more enjoyable and safe way. But I'm not sure if you're aware of that one. No, but other than that, there's definitely room for growth in that sense. I know we have a really good event provider who does junior events in terms of running and cycling as well, with a little bit of an influence on that side of things as well. So yeah, would be open to hearing opportunities or ways we could work together for those opportunities. So yeah, get in touch.
Great. Can I just pick up on the children angle? I mean, Tim, you mentioned, you know, the importance of coping with some of the impact of COVID, particularly with children in mind and so on. And I just make a little plug here. One of the campaigns that the network began is called First Nature. And this is all about promoting an expansion of nature connection opportunities for children and young people in Norfolk Plus, if you like. We've had some success recently getting some funding, and one of the pots of funding that is being, I suppose, experimented or piloted is to help schools with the costs of transport to nature sites, because that's an increasing issue for them, I think we found, along with a whole host of other things that obviously are impacting on schools as well. And that's had some very good responses so far, and we're hoping that pilot scheme might grow, and obviously it could perhaps help with trips to Thetford Forest and other places along the lines that you were talking about. Yeah. Okay, that's a great point. There's some interesting comments in the chat as well. I see Sarah, you from RSPB. Did you want to say anything more about the Nature Connections, Nature Prescriptions project, which has been developing nicely in Norfolk along several lines?
Yeah, although there's not so much to say for Suffolk. So we've just agreed a partnership with Forestry England and Natural England to develop nature prescriptions. So they're based very much on what we've done in Norfolk, where it provides people with prompts and encouragement and nudges to connect to nature from wherever they are. So it's not about going to the forest, although we will put links to places that people can visit, but about people being able to connect to nature from within their home or immediately outside. So we have got a new partnership with Forestry England, where we're going to be developing nature prescriptions for the west part of Suffolk, which will include Thetford Forest and the Brecks, the surrounding area. But it's really early days yet. We've got conversations with colleagues in the NHS at the beginning of June, I think it is now. So things will move after that, but it will be working closely with potentially with social prescribing link workers and health and wellbeing coaches, and possibly other mental health support teams across that area of Suffolk as well. So it's really exciting that we've got funding to be able to do this. I'm really looking forward to it because it's working well, I believe, in Norfolk. So it's really nice to be able to do it across the border as well into Suffolk.
Yeah, our partners in Suffolk. Yeah, and I think just a quick word, because obviously you've been having discussions as part of the First Nature campaign, haven't you, about either I don't know, a leaflet or an app or something but is geared up to adolescents basically, and encouraging them to do the sort of nature connections that your other project, which has been very successful in other areas, is already doing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're still looking at how best to do that. I'm really keen that anything that we do on nature prescriptions for young people is co-designed, co-produced with young people. So it may look very different to the resources that we have now, but we're just looking at how best to work that out in terms of funding for it, so that it's properly funded and that we can develop it as a project. So conversations are still ongoing there, and I think we've got another conversation in a couple of weeks to see what our next steps are and which groups of young people we can work with. But yeah, it'd be great to be able to do that. And if we got to have an app as well, then we can design that with young people, but then of course it would be available to all people.
Yeah, great, lovely work. Tim, you've got your hand up.
What I do it the polite way as well. One is we touched on link workers and health coaches a bit earlier on, and the PCNs and the ICBs, and all those new set of acronyms that came in about 18 months ago. I've got a separate budget line whereby if any of you in the network know of those networks or networks of those networks, again, we would be, I'm saying the royal we, Jake, but we would be happy to host a link worker day, again, to enable those link workers to network with each other and learn from each other, but also to experience the offer that we've got at High Lodge. And again, that advocacy that they can then go back to their practices and maybe to their team, say, again, I experienced that. I can imagine Joe and Joanne Public doing that. I can see the benefits they may have. So please bear that in mind as well, that if you are in a network or know of networks that you think might benefit from an experience at High Lodge, give Jake and myself a shout, and we'll see if we can set something up. That's really not a problem.
Great, thank you very much. Nick, welcome. Over to you.
Hi, Nigel. Tim, Jake, really interested to hear all the work you guys have been doing nationally and as well as at Thetford. I represent the Brex Fen Edge and Rivers Landscape Partnership Scheme. We're lottery funded, and we're coming into the last year of 5. We're based in Thetford, so we've been working sort of in the Brex. And we've had a really strong strand on health and well-being, connecting people to the landscape, sort of under the heading of Breathe in the Brex. And all of this fits in really well with kind of what we've been doing as part of our partnership scheme. Appreciate Forestry England isn't part of this partnership, but was part of the previous one, which was Breaking New Ground. But we've been doing quite a lot of work recently, working with social prescribers and that whole sort of area of work to try and improve the connections between public health and our partners, the heritage organisations, including all the wildlife trusts and other groups working in the Brex. To come to the point, we had a wellbeing festival. Was it last month? Maybe even 2 months ago now. Time flies. Where I'm pleased a number of people actually on this call were in attendance, and it was perceived to be very successful. And that brought everybody together to talk about the opportunities and the needs and those sorts of things. As a follow-up, we're now arranging a sort of a day of visits for social prescribers, with the idea of taking them in a minibus to partner sites to introduce them to opportunities being offered by partners for a wide range of sort of social prescriptions, if you like, activities, events, things they can do, again, to try and improve that connection. So I would welcome a conversation probably with you guys to see whether you want to be involved in that, whether we can arrange a day where we bring the people that we've been sort of networking with to yourselves to introduce them. This comes back to the fact we're in the last year, and I'm really keen that our partnership leaves behind a legacy of improved communication networks and all of the things that we've been supporting carrying on after the lottery funding ends, and we sort of go on to do other things. So maybe there's an opportunity there for us to have a chat, perhaps talk in a bit more detail about what we're doing and what we've kind of managed to establish with our other partners, potentially how Forestry England could be a part of that as well.
Yeah, great. You want to come back on any of that, Jake or Tim?
No, just to say, it sounds amazing, Nick. Yeah, yeah, we'll pick something up after today.
I'll ping you guys an email and we can go from there, perhaps.
Just on that theme of introducing link workers to opportunities, I see Giles from Natural England. Giles, you put an interesting comment along those lines in the chat. Did you want to say anything more about that? You said about taster sessions for link workers.
Hi. Yeah, thanks, Nigel. Yeah, it's not something I've been closely involved in. I know my colleagues in the Southwest and in the Northwest have both run those sessions, and they've gone down extremely well, and it's worked very productively in terms of engaging with the health sector. Often, as you all know, it can be difficult to embed what we as nature providers do within the knowledge base of health sector workers, but this kind of bridges that gap, and it's not through lack of enthusiasm. It's often, we all know how busy they are, and it can sometimes, perhaps the sort of things that nature providers do, such as Forestry England and the Brex partnership, just might not be on their radar. So this really brings it to life, and I'd be happy to get a summary or more information of those examples to you if that would help.
So,
Yep.
so hi, Giles. I didn't recognise the name on the call.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Cheers.
Great. Frank, over to you. Put your hand up. Thanks for being patient.
No worries. So I don't know what my input is, but I thought it would be interesting just to let you know. So I work for Abbeycroft Leisure, who run the leisure facilities in West and South Suffolk.
Sorry, could you just repeat that? You went very muted for a while there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
So I work for Abbeycroft Leisure, who run the leisure facilities in West and South Suffolk, and we run the leisure centre in Brandon, so just down the road. We run things like health walks from the centre that use Forestry Commission land, which is around Brandon. So us as an organisation are quite well linked with a range of mental health services, and we run a range of mental health services within our organisation. and our centres. So I don't know if there's some link there that might be useful at High Lodge. My other hat and my main role is I run Abercroft's outdoor education provision. So we're a mobile education, outdoor education provider called Explore Outdoor. And we work with schools right across Suffolk, predominantly Suffolk, but we do work with some schools in Thetford and Norfolk. And we provide forest school programs for young people. We do school activity days and intervention sessions for schools, as well as during school holidays. We use Braund Country Park would be the nearest to High Lodge, but local green space to engage both families and young people in outdoor activities around the whole region. And we also work on tree planting projects and developing green space. And we've got a big project with Suffolk County Council working with a school in Bury, where we've planted 4 acres of virgin woodland that's going to be a community woodland accessible for everyone in the heart of Bury St Edmunds. So we do lots and lots of different stuff around green space, outdoor activity, mental health, green health. So I don't know where we sit within this, but I thought it might be interesting to share the work that we're doing and that we're doing locally, and whether there's any partnership work or joined up work that we can do.
Definitely, yeah. I think just as you were talking, it kind of dawned on me. We had sort of planting opportunities in February, and at my disposal, I didn't have groups or schools, or it didn't really have anybody ready to go. This is an opportunity. Do you want to come and do it? And that's where those partnerships, I think, would come in really, really handy. Like we said, there's those opportunities, but yeah, again, sounds like a further conversation, Frank.
Very good.
Yeah, cool.
Just looking through the chat again, I see, Dawn, you've mentioned the Green Light Trust, which many people may well be aware of. Very active now in Norfolk. I think started off in Suffolk, but active, I think, at National Trust sites and other places. Who else have we got? Sally. Hang on, I've got someone on not muted. Sally, I see you've mentioned the, again, Natural England work with refugees. Did you want to say anything more about that? Sally. Much you might have gone. Okay. Okay, well, any more questions or comments, anyone? Simon, you've mentioned Pathmakers. Would you like to say something about that?
Yes, indeed. Thanks very much. I've put something on the chat, but we are lottery funded. We're having a second walking festival in Norfolk this October. And we also set up monthly walks. I know we're very keen to collaborate with Jake and the rest of you to set up some walks. In fact, I think he's probably been in touch with you already. I hope we have. We should have been. And we're very keen to encourage people to get access to the countryside, as I say, for all ages and backgrounds and abilities. And we would certainly welcome with collaborating with you guys about getting walk going in Thetford Forest. So thank you all very much. It's been an interesting hour.
Great, thank you. Stephanie, you've joined us recently, and I think you've mentioned about Great Yarmouth. Is there anyone on the call who's active in the Great Yarmouth area that might be able to help her? If not, get over there. Okay. Well, we're coming up to 2 o'clock, which was our scheduled finish. I want to finish by saying a really big thank you again to Tim and Jake for a really stimulating and interesting presentation. It's obviously generated a lot of enthusiasm and energy from those here, and all sorts of follow-up I can see taking place. Just talking about the follow-up, as you know, I've recorded the session, and I will be sending around the link to that to everyone who registered, some of whom aren't here today. I'd also send around a copy of the chat and a copy of the slides as a PDF. And I just wondered if you'd be happy for me to share your emails with each other. If anyone is anti that, perhaps give me a thumbs down. Otherwise, if that's okay, I'll do an open email so you can see each other's email address. And that might provide, again, an opportunity for a bit of contact and cross-fertilization, if that's okay. Otherwise, thank you again for your attendance, and wish you all well. And I'm sure we'll all be in touch one way or another with one or another of everyone who's been here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Nigel. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you guys.